Well, in 1939, when war broke out, I was a law student in London, and I was exactly 20 years old. As soon as war broke out, I volunteered for the Royal Air Force, and I had to wait about 6 months before I was called up because of difficulties in training, etc.
Now, I'm thinking the most crucial question is what urged you to enlist to serve the British forces, especially considering that they were the same forces that were occupying your own country?
Well, as a matter of fact, I had been considering whether to join or not join, because of the fact that Cyprus was a British colony, and that I was one of those who believed that Cyprus should be given its freedom. However, when I considered the matter very carefully, and because I was very much interested in international politics, and I knew about the situation in the dictatorships of Germany and Italy, I came to the conclusion that should they win the war, there will be very little work for lawyers to do. And I decided that I would put down my books and take up arms against the dictatorial regime of Hitler. In 1938, I was a student also in England, and I was one of those students who went under 10 Downing Street, and when Chamberlain appeared with a piece of paper saying peace with honor, I booed him, because I did not believe that there was honor in betraying Czechoslovakia and giving up part of Czechoslovakia to Germany, the Sudetenland. My family at the time was as follows. My father was in Cyprus. My mother was in England with my sister and myself. I had no problem in explaining to my father why I wanted to stop my studies and join the army, because he did the same. He joined the Cyprus regiment. Although he was a lawyer, a very important lawyer in Cyprus, immediately the war broke out, he joined the Cyprus regiment. So I had no problem with my father, but I did have a problem with my mother, who almost collapsed when she heard that I was going to be flying and I was going to be fired at and that I was going to get killed. I must say that in the Royal Air Force, not only I, but a lot of other people who came from colonies and dominions as they were then, who never felt anything which would make us feel that we were looked upon as something inferior. I think that when you are flying, there is a comradeship that is created, that each one relies on the other so much that there is no time for discrimination or for any of that sort.
So why did you join the Air Force rather than the Cyprus regiment?
Well, the Cyprus regiment was in Cyprus, and in any case it was infantry, and I didn't like walking very much. I preferred flying. I had done some flying before the war as a hobby, and one of the things that was very much interested me is flying, the designs of aircrafts, the shapes of aircrafts, and so I thought the best the best service for me would be the Royal Air Force.
What was your rank again?
My rank, I started as a private, and I had to be trained as a cadet, and then I became a sergeant, And then I became a warrant officer, and then I became an officer. I went through the ladder. Well, I was shot down over Hamburg in 1942. It was July 1942. It was one of those very big air raids on Hamburg, where about 1,000 aircraft took part, flying from different heights at different directions in order to confuse the ground defenses. And unfortunately, after bombing Hamburg, due to an error of navigation of my navigator, instead of being over the sea, we were over Bremen. And we were the only aircraft over Bremen, so the whole firing power of the Bremen defenses concentrated on us. We were coned in searchlights, and then we were shot piece by piece. The aircraft caught fire. We lost all our fuel, and I jumped from a height of 8,000 feet, but I did not open my parachute because there was a lot of flak coming up, and I thought they'll cut me to pieces, so I went very quickly through, and I landed on land. 3 members of the crew landed in the drink, and they were picked up by German patrol boats and brought in. 2 of the crew died in the water. They were very seriously wounded. I was wounded on my left leg, and I was captured. I don't think that my capture was very brave on my part. As soon as I landed outside Bremen, I bandaged my wounds, and then I followed the instructions were given to us. We had no sidearms, we had no arms. When the German patrol came up, I put up my hands and I said, Engländer Aviateur, Maschine kaputt, Kriegsgefangene. And with that, they picked me up. They took me to a hospital for French prisoners of war, where I was operated by a French male nurse without anesthetics. They got out the shrapnel from my leg, they bandaged my leg. I had also fractured my leg in landing, my wounded leg. But as soon as my leg was better, I cut the plaster myself, tied my sheets into a rope, and escaped from the hospital. I got into Holland, and I was recaptured in Holland. I did 1 week in the Duncan cell. It's a cell without light. There is only a cement floor. You have 1 blanket, and you are on bread and water. 3 slices of bread and a can of water. After that, I was taken further in. I was taken to Silesia, near the Polish border, so as to be away from being able to escape and get back to England. There I did a year in chains. The Germans alleged that when the Canadians landed at Dieppe, they had shot some Germans which have taken prisoners with their hands tied behind them. As a result, they chosen 1,000 prisoners, the bad boys, and they took us into a special camp, and we were chained up for a whole year. From there I escaped and got down to Yugoslavia.
Yugoslavia.
And I was recaptured 75 kilometers from the Adriatic coast. I was trying to cross to Italy because the British forces had landed in Italy, and I was unfortunately betrayed by the Croats. On the Croatian coast at Selce, I was recaptured and I did 3 months in prison in Yugoslavia. There it was a place where they had partisans, and every day there were executions of partisans. They waited to get clarification that I was a prisoner of war from the camp. I told them I had escaped. Had they not got clarification, I would have been a dead man.
So when were you released?
I was returned back to the camp near the Polish frontier. And when the Russians advanced, they started evacuating us. They evacuated 10,000 prisoners on foot in the winter. We were marching 30 kilometers a day, sleeping out in the open in the snow, one on top of the other to keep warm. And our ration was 2 boiled potatoes and a watery soup. Lots of the people died on the way from dysentery because out of hunger they picked up things, they ate, and they got dysentery. I survived that. When we reached Cassel on the French border, I again escaped, and I was picked up by the 3rd American Army. I was flown back to England before the war was over.